What's going on, everybody? What's going on? Um, Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. If you're on here, guys, hit that like button. Hit the like button. Tag anybody on this discussion. Share it with somebody that you think may find it interesting. This this should be interesting. This should be interesting. Um, y'all, for those of you guys that are here, hey, what's going on? Hey, Chantel, good to see you. Good to see you. Y'all, okay, this first off, this topic, like I literally I ran across this and I almost thought it was a joke. Like I didn't think it was for real. But nope, y'all, it's for real. It is a serious thing. And before I really get into this, because there's a few things that I want to touch upon that I think this whole topic addresses. Before I get into it, I want to read through an article real quick of MILF OnlyFans model slash influencer Nita Marie. Here I have her content up here. You can kind of get a sense of who she is. But actually, I want to bring up an article where she just kind of breaks down her whole ideology, her whole theology, her whole beliefs, and why she believes that stripping for Jesus is her ministry, and what mindset and ideology that this exposes. So let me just bring it up. Because, like I said, instead of me telling it to y'all, it's better to go right to the source. So those of you guys who are here, hit that like button while you're coming in here. Also, if you'd like to show support to the show, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Charday. I'm going to bring up the article that I saw that kind of gets into this whole topic. Let me see. Okay. Y'all, just when I thought I'd seen it all. Okay. Wait, where'd you go? Okay. Alrighty. So let's go right back to the top. I know this one kind of has a lot of ads here, but so mind you guys, this woman, she went viral. She went viral about a year ago. So I'm just now catching on to this, but about a year ago, Miss Nita Marie, went viral. I mean, she was on New York Post, Fox News covered her. There's a couple of rather large media companies that covered this OnlyFans model that is stripping for Jesus. So let me see. This is coming up, right? I want to make sure you guys are seeing it. Are you guys seeing it? Why is it showing something different? Okay. Let me do this. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to make sure the orientation is good. But yeah, so she went live or went viral about a year ago, technically about a year ago, and she basically was talking about how she believes that it is her mission. It is her mission to strip for God. And it is her mission to pose nude in the name of Jesus. That is her mission. And like I said, without me trying to explain to you why, I'm just going to read through it. We're going to get into it. Okay, so it reads here, this particular article is, I think, Lad Bible, but like I said, this was on New York Post. This is on a few different major news sources, but it reads, an OnlyFans model says she strips offline because it's what God wants her. Wait, it's because what God wants her to do. Oh, I think this is the one right here. Okay. So this again. An OnlyFans model says she strips offline because it's what God wants her to do, and believes she's in a divine mission to empower other women to embrace their sexuality. Nita Marie from Colorado in the US says she found Christianity when she was just 9 years old and had a dream about Jesus. So there you have it. I guess her first introduction to Jesus or the God of the Bible was through a dream that she had when she was 9. However, as she grew, she found that her version of Christ and God didn't quite fit with the Bible, so she explored a personal relationship with Christ. Okay, so she had a dream about Jesus. Evidently, Jesus reveals himself to her, however that looks. But then she finds that she is not in agreement with the Bible, or she's not in agreement with the book that actually speaks directly to the Messiah. Y'all. I mean, already personally, this to me is so problematic because it's like, listen, we haven't even gotten far into the article, but let me just say this. This I feel like examples like this is precisely why there are a lot of men out there right now who do not take Christian women, do not take women who say that they're spiritual seriously. This would be a prime example. Because she's essentially doing what women, just women today are doing, period. She's doing what modern women are doing, women who have no connection with God or women who may be atheists, who may be whatever. She's essentially doing what everybody else is doing, but saying that it's in the name of God. But if you just look at it for what it is, it's like there is nothing different. There's literally nothing different about her behavior versus the behavior of somebody who would not be a Christian. And I break this down in another video where I'm saying, right, what's happening right now is that so many people going around that call themselves Christians act exactly the same as everybody else. Sometimes like they act worse. They're more hypocritical. Sometimes like they can even be more prideful or more judgmental or whatever. And it's like Christians by and large have such a horrible reputation. And like I said, this is a prime example of why. Because, here she's saying that she's doing stuff in the name of God, doing stuff in the name of Christ or whatever. And you look at it though, and it's just like, but you're doing literally the exact same thing of a lot of these other models who aren't claiming to do Christian things, aren't claiming to do godly things, they're just doing it for money. So how do I know that you're legitimate? But I mean, to me, and that's just the first thing that stood out, y'all. But let me continue. Here she says the Bible was written during a time when women were not allowed to read or write. Actually, I don't think that's true, but now you're getting into okay, well, what canon are you referring to? If we really want to go there. And also, like, by the way, like the people Hebrews in the Bible, like that was a oral their oh my gosh, their culture was oral. So a lot of people weren't writing. That was primarily for the scribes. But anyways, I digress. Basically, she said it was written in a time where women were not allowed to read or write. Okay. I believe it will be much different if women were able to be part of it, writing it. But when it came to her job, Nita found that some of her Christian friends were less than accepting. Well, of course, I mean, any person who has even read an ounce of the Bible would look at this and be like, this is unbiblical, just flat out. Like, if you're saying that you believe in God and that you're a Christian, and you actually understand some of the basic principles of Christianity, like this goes completely against it. So of course, people are going to agree with it. She said, when I first started modeling, I had a lot of Christian friends and families who shunned me. However, I asked God if I wanted me to continue, and the answer was always yes. So people around her were saying, hey, this is not good, but she prayed personally and God told her yes. I see now that I was guided to continue so I would help women and men have healthy relationships with sex and their bodies. I am so glad that I stayed the course so that I could continue to build a safe and loving community for other women in the adult modeling world. The model believes that Christianity is run by the patriarchy and suppresses women's sexuality, which isn't what God wanted. So the more I read this article, the more I understand that. I mean, really what this is at the core is Christian feminism. Like, I haven't even finished it. But what it sounded like at the core it's just Christian feminism. It is feminism now wrapped in a maybe different, cloth and a religious veneer, but at the core it's the same point, right? Men were in control, men were in power, men did this, men were oppressing women, they were oppressing their sexuality, and then now we need freedom. So it's like this is essentially feminism now, just wrapped in a veneer of Christianity. But you see that literally the arguments are identical. Also, by the way, this is the thing about it. This is another thing that I've noticed. And I can even say this about Christian that I know who claim to be Christian. I feel like you can actually start to understand when people aren't reading the Bible. Because it's like, if you actually read the Bible or had a pretty solid understanding about it, you could never say that God didn't want people to have sex. Or you could never say that like God was trying to suppress people's sexuality. Like it never, I mean, literally there's a whole book about sex in the Bible, like the Song of Solomon. So it's like, I don't know that you can say that, not to mention there's like plenty of verses in Proverbs that talk about a man rejoicing in the wife of his youth, a man being satisfied by his woman's breast. Like, I mean, there are pretty blatant scriptures in the Bible that talk about a man and a woman enjoying sex. So I think to come to this conclusion to me means, okay, maybe this person actually hasn't read the Bible, or they never got to that part. They never got to that part of it, because that's actually not true. That is actually not true. And then it says, the Bible is run by the patriarchy. Here's another issue that I have sometimes when people will look at the Bible and call it misogynist. I asked this question before in the community tab, and I said, okay, y'all, is the Bible misogynist? And he had some people who were like, yes, some people no, I don't mess with the Bible, et cetera, A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. But here's the primary issue with a lot of the people that I hear claiming that the Bible is misogynist. First off, you can't accurately judge a culture, or you can't actually judge like a people group until you actually understand their vantage point, until you've studied the culture, until you've studied their practices, until you study their customs, until you understand where they're coming from, sociologically, physiologically, economically, like until you actually understand their culture, you can't accurately judge it. And what you have right now is you have a lot of people who they're looking at the Bible through their own American lens or through their own Western lens, assuming that that's how the people thought, assuming that that's how people lived society in biblical times. And it's not. The way we live in America today, the way people live in the West period is completely different than the way people were living in the Bible. So to sit here and say that it's misogynistic, it's like, well, based upon what? Have you actually sat down and tried to study their culture, studied their philosophy, studied how they thought, how they moved, how they believed, how men and women were valued, how men and women interacted? Like, have you sat down and truly understood it? Because if you're just doing it based upon the American lens or based upon the Western lens, you're going to come to a false conclusion. And so, like, majority of the times when I hear people saying it's misogynistic, they're measuring the Bible based upon today's cultural standards. And like I said, you can never, at that point, everybody's going to lose. At that point, it's like almost a false equivalency, because they're different cultures. Like, they're different cultures. So that's what I'm saying. So this whole, patriarchy, misogyny, it's like, well, based upon what? Like, have you actually sat down and studied the culture, or do you at least understand the culture? Based upon what was said early in the article, it sounds like no. Because she said that she just believes that the Bible was patriarchal and misogynistic. And she also said she didn't grow up in a religious family. So it's like, I have to wonder, okay, where are these ideas coming from? Where are these ideas coming from? Anyways, I continue. So it says, the model believes that Christianity is run by the patriarchy and suppresses women's sexuality, which isn't what God wanted. She added, the story of Mother Mary being a virgin and being impregnated by God sets the stage for all women to be shameful of their desire for sex and or their need for sex. What? So that, okay. So again, virgin birth it's a pretty foundational, like, basic principle of Christianity. It's pretty important. So like, if that is up for question, or if that is seen as problematic or shameful, then it's like, okay, well, can you even call yourself Christian? I don't know. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but it's like the virgin birth, that's like foundational to Christian belief. So if that's an issue, then can you even call yourself Christian? Like, literally. Then it says, to me, sexuality is a huge part of my faith. It is a gift that God gave us to experience with other people where both parties are consensual. When we experience an orgasm with someone else, we share a small part of how God feels about us. Y'all, okay. Let me just look in these comments real quick, because I'm like, am I the only one that just thinks that this, personally, I just think this is completely crazy. Like, this BS. I see Black men will fade out. This is your Becky. She is super Becky too. Oh God. Yeah. I mean, y'all, at the end of the day, she wants to model. She wants to strip naked, and she's telling God that she's saying that God wants her to do it. Now, she doesn't believe in the Bible, or she thinks it's misogynistic. And it sounds like she doesn't believe in accountability, because she literally said earlier in the article that anytime anybody in the church was just, or Christian friends she knew was just like, hey, this is kind of off, she didn't believe them. So it's like, there's no accountability there. It is what it is. Y'all can read between the lines, but based upon just like I said, the actual Bible and what it stands for and what it means, nothing about what she is doing is biblical. Nothing about it. Nothing about it. There's even some articles that went on to say that she wanted to be a GILF. Here it says, yeah, Christian OnlyFans model claims God has told her to keep going until she's in her 70s. She wants to be a GILF. That's grandma, I'd like to, the rest. Now she's 46. She has about 1 million followers on Instagram, so she's pretty popular and earns 120K a month on OnlyFans. She found her faith after having a dream about Jesus, y'all. So she said she was getting that cash. So I think I missed this portion of it, but if you see up here it says, yeah, she's going to go into her 70s. She's going into her 70s. She's doing it in the name of God. In the name of God, she's calling herself a GILF. In the name of God, she's saying that she has, she's making money, over 6 figures a month, and she's going to do it into her 70s. What God wants her to do. Okay, and then here, oh God, I mean, this is even more disgusting. I mean, she kind of breaks it down. I think the more I read into it, the more I'm like, yo, this is crazy. She is a mom of 2. She said she's a devout follower of Christianity, but doesn't believe in the Bible and doesn't believe, obviously, in reading the Bible and doesn't believe in accountability. So y'all get the picture. This is Nita Marie. She's very popular on Instagram and on TikTok. I showed you some of her content. Actually, let me see if I can bring it up now. I'm going to go back to her TikTok so you guys can get a sense of her content that she's doing in the name of God. Let's see. Oops, let me do this. Now here, like I said, let me go back to my earlier point. This is precisely why people don't take, there's a lot of men out there who don't take Christian women seriously. This is why. Because if they can look at a woman who says that she's spiritual or Christian and does literally the exact same thing, I mean, like the literal, it is identical. It is no different than somebody who would consider themselves unspiritual. Then how can anybody take that seriously? And it's so interesting sometimes how what God wants for us is conveniently what we want at the same time. Like that's hecka convenient. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I said, here's, you get a sense of this is what she's doing in the name of God. She's doing the name of God. And like I said, prime example. This is why at this point, the way I see it, it's like people see a lot of women, a lot of Christian women, a lot of spiritual women as a laughing stock because they're just like, you're literally doing the exact same thing. You're literally doing the exact same thing. Now, why do I want to talk about this? There's a couple of reasons, because the interesting thing about Miss Nita Marie to me is the fact that, while she claims to be someone who was helping to liberate women and help women be more sexually free and more sexually liberated and more sexually expressive. That's her ministry. The interesting thing to me is that as a woman who has 2 kids and is, 46, not too far from 50, it's crazy to me how I am starting to see, or I continue to see, the mindset of young women, beliefs, ideas, ideology that I would expect to see among teenagers and 20-year-olds. It's interesting how I'm seeing that among older women. I did a post earlier today. I did a post, I think earlier yesterday, where I was basically talking about like, what's going on with this like trend of 50 and fine on TikTok. Now, first off, nothing wrong with that. Like there was literally nothing wrong with somebody wanting to, with a, older woman wanted to feel mature and beautiful. Like I'm all for that. I think it's great to see older women who take care of themselves or going to the gym. I support that. So no issue with a woman feeling beautiful in her body at any age. But what caught my attention is the very fact that some of these women, close to 50 grannies are literally doing the exact same thing that somebody in their teens and their 20s is doing, somebody who's thirst trapping. That to me is what's interesting. And when I read through that article and when I did some research and I saw what she was trying to lead women to do, what she was trying to encourage women to do, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how you're like you want these women to be sexually liberated, but how is this going to help raise families? I think about that. Like, if in this culture, if we're starting to see older women saying, "Look, my goal is to have younger women be sexually liberated," okay, but how are they going to learn how to actually raise families though? Like, we've had like 50, 60, however many decades of sexual liberation. So, me personally, I don't think women need to be any more sexually liberated than they are right now. That's just my personal opinion. I'm like, there is plenty of evidence to show that women have no problem getting down and having sex. That to me, that's not the issue. But nevertheless, if you think that is your ministry, okay. How is this actually preparing the next generation though to be productive individuals and raise families and raise kids? How is this actually preparing women to be moms, to be wives, to all of that? And I find this interesting because I'm like, here is a woman who has 2 kids, who is close to 50, and she's just one of many examples of older women that I see online, for lack of a better term, thirst trapping. And I'm thinking, wait, wouldn't they be the women who would be looking at like the teens and 20s and being like, put your clothes on, or you should do this, or this is how you should prepare to get a husband? Like, aren't these the women that should be raising them up? What's going on? And if they're doing the exact same thing, well, who's going to raise these young girls? So that to me is what was so crazy about this. And like I said, she has a nerve to say this is for Jesus. I mean, anybody out there that has read the Bible for 2 seconds knows that nothing about what she says is even remotely biblical. So she's serving something that's between her and God, but I'm like, it's not biblical, that's for sure. Like, everything from, promoting open sexuality, all of that. I mean, nothing about it is biblical. So it's like, it just is what it is. But even apart from that, even if we move away from even the whole spiritual concept of it, I'm seeing a trend. I see a trend of women and, older women who, for all intents and purposes, are at the stage in their life where they can now go back and mentor younger women, or they could go back and now start to teach and now start to train and now start to raise up. And when they're at that stage of life, it seems to me that instead of there being an emphasis on mentoring those young girls and seeing how they can be set up for success, the emphasis seems to be, but I'm a fun mom too. But I still have it too. But I'm still sexy too. And while there's nothing wrong with feeling sexy as a 50-year-old or 60-year-old, there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying, why does it seem like now we're leading with that? And that's the cold part. If you listen to her article, or if you look into some of her other stuff, she talks about she's a MILF and she wants to be a GILF. That is her goal, is to be a GILF. And she's leading women. She's leading women into the mindset of growing up to be a GILF. And I'm like, okay, that's fine if you want to be a GILF. But I'm like, not only is this not going to help the younger generation, this stuff is popular, y'all. This stuff is popular. You just go on social media and you see granny twerking. Like I said, the last week I've seen a couple of like grandma videos or women in their 50s, 60s, like literally thirst trapping, and that's actually what I want to get at. That's what I want to get into, because I want to show you y'all a few more examples. So again, guys, if you're here, hit that like button. Hit that like button. Show support to the show. Show support to the show. Yeah, see, Shay Teller, don't put that on Jesus. Yeah, like I said, we already know Jesus don't have nothing to do with that. Like, it's just nobody who has read the Bible has said that. And let me say this for people who are out there trying to, they really want to be about serving God, or they really believe in being a Christ follower, but you don't believe in any accountability. You don't want to work with anybody else. You're kind of on this me, myself, and God Lone Ranger mentality, and you don't read the Bible. That's how people, my humble opinion, that's exactly how people get deceived. Because even if you look at the Messiah himself wasn't doing stuff solo bolo. Like, he had a time where he was sitting under teachers. He had a time where he was under training. He had a time where he himself was even under authority. Like, if you read the biblical narrative, and then he had the apostles. So it's like, I think right now we kind of you see a lot of people going around having like their own like their own Lone Ranger ministries or Lone Ranger religions. And it's convenient because it doesn't require any accountability. It's convenient because it doesn't require anybody else in your life to work with you, to work alongside you, to be accountable to say, hey, I don't know if that's right, girl. You may be a little bit off. Like, it's convenient when you can go in your corner and have nobody else look into your life and have nobody hold you accountable, and then you can just serve God on by yourself. And that's not how God intended it. Like I said, if you understand anything about the Bible, or even anything about the faith, or how it even evolved historically, it wasn't about people doing stuff by themselves, apart from accountability, apart from groups, apart from, it wasn't about that. And so, to me, that's a telltale sign that somebody is, they may be in a safe, unsafe place. And that's not to say, look, there are times when people are in and out of ministries, or they're trying to find where they fit. There's, like, I'm not saying just because you're not like a part of a big mega church, you don't, you're off. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, this trying to find a reason to have to be unaccountable to people is not healthy, and that's just strictly not godly. Like, it's just not. And especially as somebody who says that they're a Christ follower, you can't do that. Like, you can't say that you're really about this and then never have anybody in your life who would be willing to speak into you or hold you accountable, especially according to the biblical text that literally speaks of the Messiah that you claim to follow. Like, like, it just doesn't work like that. So, but what I want to do now is turn your attention really quick to a few other. I just want to give you guys some examples of the trend that I'm seeing. Okay. So, and again, so like I said, first off, literally, no, this is like no shade. I legitimately do appreciate seeing women of all ages feeling beautiful about themselves. Like, no shade there. No shade there. Now, this came up in my feed. I think this was like another 50 plus and fabulous. Um, like I said, I grew up in the era of grandma. My grandma went to church all the time and was always in her polyester suits, like, always telling me 15 seconds not to have sex and not to have drugs. I just grew up in that era, so I think maybe I'm still adjusting to this new gilf era, right? I'm still adjusting to this, but the issue to me isn't women feeling beautiful under skin. The What I'm noticing is the fact that the thirst trapping, the thirst trapping to me is what I find incredibly interesting. And then sometimes, if I'm being quite honest, I think it can be disturbing if it seems as if that is the emphasis.
Guys, we are going to start.
So I want to share
when
this.
You look at me. What is the first thing your eyes land on? What is the first thing you notice? Put it in the comments. All right, guys, we are going to start a trend. When you look at me, what is the first thing your eyes land on? What is the first thing you notice? Put it in the comments.
So this one, like I said, this came in my feed. Queen Tots 3. Here it says over 50 club, mature woman, confident woman, support woman, curvy talker, sexy at 50, so she's 57. TikToker mom of 6. I think she might have 6 kids, so I mean, she looks great for her age. But I saw this and I was like, yo,
when you look at me, what is the first thing
that's the third
your
trap,
eyes
y'all.
land on? What is
That's
the
the third
first
trap.
thing you notice? Put it in the comments. All right, guys, we are going to start a trend.
So
when you look at me, what is the first thing your eye?
So like I said, I'm not used to this era of grandma. I'm not used to this era, but here we are. And here's another, influential TikToker from what I understand. A very attractive woman, 57, has a couple of kids, and she's putting herself out there. That's thirst trap is real, y'all. The thirst trap is real. And then there's another one that I saw. That I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I'm gonna bring this one up. Let me bring this up. Like I said, I got receipts here. And again, the reason I'm talking about this is because, like I said, these are things that I've kind of been noticing over the last few days. I'm noting this over the last few days, and I'm thinking, wait, these are these are women, older women, and I'm expecting to hear them talk about maybe their grandkids or when they're married or retirement or whatever. And let me see. Here's another. Here's another. I think 50 and fabulous. The 50 and fabulous. 57. So I think here it says she is 57. No, I think she's actually a bodybuilder. So I mean, for 57 especially, their bodies look great. Like I said, no shade. I mean, she's probably working really hard. One of my family members, did personal training and bodybuilding, and so I know it takes an extreme amount of dedication to be able to go and compete. So it's like no shade there, but my question is this, or really this is what I'm noticing. If there's such an emphasis on retaining youth, which there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with trying to stay and look good for a long time. But if that becomes the emphasis becomes retaining your youth and going from being a hot girl summer to now being a MILF to now being a GILF. At what point in time in that evolvement are women taught to be constructive moms, daughters, women who will actually learn how to raise their kids, um, respect their husbands, like build good, strong families? At what point does that become the conversation? And let it be clear, this is something that we see this a lot even with celebrities. What was in that thing with that Mary J. Blige? I think that went viral. I don't know if it was last year or whatever, where like she turned 50 and she had the bikini, and we've seen it with like I think like J Lo and some of these other celebrities where they'll hit 50 and then they'll put them in a bikini. Nothing wrong with, like I said, there's nothing wrong with looking good, but I'm like, at this point, why are we judging women in their 50s the same way women in their 20s are being judged? Why can't it be that, okay, in your 50s, okay, what wisdom do you have to offer? Like what insight, what qualities, what character? Because I'm thinking at that point, when you're in your 50s, my personal opinion, you shouldn't be judged the same way a woman in her 20s is, because you have so much more life, you have so much more experience, and presumably you would have so much more wisdom. But I'm like, if the emphasis is still trying to just look like you're as young as possible, even when you're getting older, to me personally, that to me is a definition of misogyny. Valuing yourself only based upon your looks, and you being in your 50s and maybe even getting in your 60s and feeling like you should or need to be doing the exact same thing people in the teens are doing and saying, I still got it. Like if that's all we have to offer, if that is like the pinnacle of growing older, then it's like, I think there's a pretty big problem. And if this is the example that younger women have, like if this is literally the example that they have, which is, women supposedly Christian women saying that they want to be gilfs, which when we already know, like I said, if you are serious about trying to be a Christ follower, that's not it. That's not it. But I'm like, if that's the example that we have is just women as they get older still holding on to their youth, and there's not necessarily an emphasis on the other qualities that older mature women have, then it's a huge imbalance and it's incredibly dangerous. And we're not raising up young girls to be productive wives, to be productive people who will be able to raise families. And to be fair, there are women out there who have made it very clear that they don't want families. So if you're that, then that doesn't apply to you. That's fine, because not everybody does. But there's still a very large component of women who honestly do want families. They do want to be wives, even if they don't know how to, even if they try to convince themselves they do. They want the white picket fence and they want the 2.5 kids. They may want the hot girl summer too, but nevertheless, that desire is innate within them. But if there's no conversation and if there's no example on how to do that, and if all we see on TikTok and social media is it's just this, and we don't see promoted heavily, online in the media and these different spaces, we don't see older women being valued for their wisdom. We see older women being compared to younger women and saying, I still got it. We're not raising up. The younger generation is not being set up for success. And that to me was the biggest thing that I noticed with this whole thing. Like that whole article, it just kind of got me thinking about this trend that I'm seeing, because I'm like, that's a woman who's, for all intents and purposes, she calls herself a MILF, is open about wanting to be a GILF. She has almost 1 million followers, and trust me, some of these other 50 and fine influencers I've seen, I mean, these women got millies. These women they're not just like a couple hundred, couple thousand. Like, these are women that have following in the millions, some of them. So it's like, it's not just as necessarily just some small random trend in the corner. It's like, no, these women have influence. These women have influence, and it's good that they feel good about their beauty. But I'm like, is there anything else? And if not, why? Yesterday I see, a 57-year-old married woman who keeps herself like that for her husband is respectful. Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. I'm never here to say that you hit 50 and you gotta be in a polyester suit all day, wearing like a bonnet. Like, nobody's saying that. Like, you can and you should feel good or beautiful about yourself at every age. So no issues there. I noticed though, my bigger issue is the fact that I feel like older women, quite frankly, are being judged and rated the way that younger women are. And I think that's really misogynist. And I think there should be more of an emphasis on, as women age, the wisdom and the value that they bring to society, and the wisdom and the value that they can bring to younger women, versus it just being like, I still got it, I can twerk too. Because it's like, okay, like, like, what is that? Okay, you can twerk, but how is that helping? Like, how is that helping? So I mean, that's one thing. That's one thing. That's one thing that I know. This is another thing I saw. Hey, Granny Too Thick. I saw this and I was like, this is like I said, the era of GILF is here. The era of GILF is here. This is another one I just saw. I mean, she looks great for being in her 50s, but
so you done drop the window, we vibe. Hey, cut the light out while you wide. Beat that pussy, call this all domestic violence. Hey, look, ride me while you
how I stay young.
You my bitch. Hey, show me why don't drive. So you done.
So again, like I was seeing videos like this, and I was like, this is interesting, because I saw that, and then I saw another girl that I follow, a friend of mine who's like 20, doing like the exact same thing, and it's like, wow, this is like, it's interesting because I'm not seeing any different behavior. And maybe, maybe I'm biased partially, maybe I'm judging based upon the grandparents that I knew or how I knew grandparents to be. I don't know, but at the end of the day, it's like, we need elders. Elders are incredibly important. And unfortunately, it's downplayed, not only in society. I think sometimes it can be downplayed in the Black community, but elders are incredibly important. There are women that I look up to who are, 30, 40 years older than me, and they are jewels. And it's not because it's like, oh, wow, she can still twerk, or because her face is beat. It's not that. It's like, man, like, she has so much wisdom to offer. She has so much insight. And whether she looks great in her 60s or 70s or 80s, or she doesn't, that's not, to me, what is the most valuable. The thing that's the most valuable is who she is and the wisdom that she has to offer. And I personally just wish that instead of the MILF and the GILF thing being what is kind of leading this conversation, that there was more of an emphasis on the wisdom that older women can bring if they embrace that role. But not everybody wants to embrace that role. So she can't, like, grandma can get it. And that's the thing, yeah, like I said, some of these grandmas could get it, and that's fine. But it's like, so okay, so if that's the example, and if that's the cool thing, and if this is a trend, then what does that mean for the younger women? Like, who's going to teach them? Because, you know, what's that saying? It takes a village to raise a child. Like, it really does. It's not, it really does. There is no such thing as just one person having an influence on a kid. There isn't. Like, even if they come from a strong family, which many people don't, but even if they do, there are still, you know, the aunts and the uncles, and there's still the extended family. And then there's even the influence that people get from media, and influence people get from environments around them. So we're seeing this cultural trend. It doesn't seem to be going away. What is that going to mean for younger women? And that's just, like I said, that more than anything is what stood out to me. So, you know, I'm curious, you guys. I'm curious, you guys, you know, to just your thoughts on this. You know, shout out to women who are aging gracefully and able to still, you know, look and feel good in their bodies. I think that's great. But I'm like, will grandmas please stand up? What's that? There's that scripture I think in the Bible that talks about how older women should teach the younger women, and it literally instructs them and says, "Hey, like it is the duty, if you will, of the older woman to go and be somewhat of a sounding board, and to be a place to help guide and instruct younger women about how to raise kids, about how to love their husbands, about how to be productive in society. That is the obligation and also the honor of being older women. You know, there's, I think it's in Titus, it talks about that, you know, for those of you guys out there who are familiar with the Bible or whatever. So it's like, it's always been important. It's always been important to have those women, to have those elders. And yet, if we see elders doing the same thing that young people are doing, then who's going to be teaching who? Who's going to be teaching who? And so that to me is what really stood out to me from, you know, Nina Marie, the MILF, who the mother of two, 46, who wants to go until she's 70 and be a gilf, from, you know, the 50 and fine and twerking granny. I'm like, okay, but who's teaching these young girls? And if nobody's teaching these young girls, then this is yet again another free promotion of SYSBM. This is the best ever advertisement for SYSBM. Like, literally, if this is the way the culture is trending, fine. Women have a right to do it. But don't be mad if men bounce. Don't be mad if you continue to see the marriage rate decline. Don't be upset. You can't. You cannot be upset if men look at this and they look at the trend and they say, I actually want nothing to do with this. And of course, and I'm not saying all men out there are perfect. Obviously, there's not. There are men out there who do need to get their stuff together. This is why you have places like the Manosphere and other spots where they talk about men issues, and they talk about where Black men and just men in general can improve. So I'm not here to say that men have no work to do. They have their part. But also, for those of you who are doing their part and who are working and who are at a point to marry, if this is a trend and they look at it and they say, I want no part of this, SYSBM, I'm not mad at it. Shout out to Better You for the 5 that says, any woman who only brings body to the table need to realize they're not distinguishing themselves at all from this 3.6 billion others. That's a very, very, very good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I mean, what else? Body, you can get that. I mean, look, you got surgery for that. Literally. You got surgery for that. Like, what else? So, I see this is a young woman using the age filter. No, to my understanding, it's not. Because, or if she is, I don't know. To my understanding, she's not. Because I think she actually has a thing called gratitude thing. But even if it is, even if she is a young woman using the age filter, because I've seen other videos where she's kind of given advice. But even if she is, there's plenty of other content creators out there who are, you know, doing their thing, you know, who are older women and they're 50 and fine, and you know, they're twerking, they're doing their thing, and you just don't necessarily see them being like, you just don't see them being pushed as like leaders. You know what I mean? As these are wise women that we can look up to. You don't see that. So I don't know, guys. Let me see. Yeah, so this may be a young woman. Yeah, no, like I saw this again. I don't think it is because I looked at her post and I actually think O'Shea covered her, and it's like, no, I do think she's in her 50s. I think she has kids. But again, even if she is, there are other women out there twerking. Yada yada yada. But yeah, so I appreciate you, better you, for the Cash App. Yeah. Oh, I see it. I see it. I see a detractor. Shout out to Sarah Guy for being another hater. You know, guys, you gotta hug the haters. You really do. Haters. They help. They help with the conversation. I mean, half the time what they say never makes sense to me, or it's contradictory because they don't actually listen to my points. But nevertheless, they have their place. So shout out to Sarah Guy for being a hater here. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I missed, guys. Yeah, guys. So that was really my point. I didn't have nothing crazy. I just saw the article and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, let it be very, very, very clear. There's nothing about anything that Nita Marie says that lines up at all with biblical scripture or anything that your average Christian church espouses to be about. It just doesn't. So she's kind of created her own brand of whatever, but it's not scriptural. So like, let's just start there. But second, Nita Marie, if we kind of circle back a little bit for those of you guys who kind of hopped on, just kind of give you guys a quick recap. She basically talked about how she wants to be a gilf. She wants to be a gilf for Jesus. Oh, here's another. Actually, I wanted to play this because I thought this was interesting. I'm gonna play this one real quick. Listen to what she says.
About me is I'm not very domestic. In fact, the only cooking you're going to see me do is when I get dressed up as a chef. And the only cleaning you're going to see me do is when I get dressed up as a maid. So I decided to dress up at both at the same time so you can get 2 in 1, a maid and a chef. Happy fantasy.
Yeah, so she's like I said, she's doing the fantasy thing. It's just, again, I'm used to grandma where it's like, oh, I'm gonna teach you how to cook. I'm gonna teach you how to do this. I'm used to that grandma. I'm used to that mom, right? But then over there, she's like, look, I don't know how to cook. I'm not domestic at all, but I can look good. And it's interesting because I'm like, wow, this is a woman with 2 kids. Nearing 50, and she's like, I'm not really domestic, like I don't cook like that, but I can look good. And it's just crazy because I'm like, that's no different than what men complain about modern women doing. That's like literally no different. And mind you, this woman has like 1 million followers on Instagram, so take it for what it is. I see Jesus told her to strip. What's up, family values? No, we already know Jesus did not tell her to strip. Jesus did not, because if you actually read her explanation, like she has zero biblical or scriptural argument for it. She just says she thinks the Bible is misogynistic and that she prayed about it. But like I said, everybody around her who was Christian is just like, sis, are you sure you prayed? Because that's not biblical. So she has her own brand of religion, basically. It is what it is. But nevertheless, she wants to be a gilf. And she, to me, represents, I think, a larger trend of modern women who are aging, and they're, some of them are aging gracefully. They look really good for their age, and they feel comfortable in their body, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm like, are we gonna see that? Are we ever gonna see that generation of grandmas anymore? Are we gonna see that? Like if moms are going out and to a certain extent, some moms are competing with their daughters or doing the exact same thing with their daughters. Well, who's gonna be the parent? Who's gonna be the grandparent? You know what I mean? Like, where that's going to happen. So yeah, let me see. Yeah, no, who's a hater? I think, well, obviously, so let me just clarify how I define a hater. And so there's supporters, right? And then there's haters. Haters, aka people who just disagree with the content. Now, if you guys have a better word for me to use, let me know. But I'm like, if you pretty much hate everything that I say, for all intents and purposes, you're a hater. Like Yeah, so that is what I mean when I say hater. Just haters are just people who hate what I have to say or hate the content. That's kind of how I define it, just to make it clear. Also about cherry picking the Bible, I would love for you to explain what verses, what chapters, what books I'm cherry picking, and what ones do you think actually speak to the point that you're trying to make. I know I see somebody in there saying that I cherry pick the Bible, that I give passes. I'd love you to use chapter and verse to explain your point, because I do actually, read it pretty consistently. So I said, but Bible, you're right. It holds both men and women accountable. As I mentioned before, this is a femininity channel, so I tend to focus on the different issues that impact women. And if you want to hear the way men should and can improve themselves, you'll probably be better off going to the manosphere. I've had a few men come on and share different things that men can do to improve, and I'm all for it. But this will continue to be a space where we focus on the things that how women can improve, because as women, as ladies, that's the best thing that we can do. The best thing that we can do is like actually own ourselves and own the things that we ourselves can actually make better. Yeah, I see you're confusing cherry picking with referencing. What's going on, Orange Pill Nurse? It's good to see you. It's good to see you. Um, okay, guys. So yeah, that's really what I got. Honestly, like this was an interesting thing. I mean, I may have to do another topic on the MILF versus the GILF and the eternal hot girl summer, because it is somewhat of a trend. It is somewhat of a trend, and not only is it a cultural trend, but I think culture to a certain extent it impacts people's day-to-day decisions. And unfortunately, we live in a culture where, my thought that we live in a culture that women are not necessarily wise women, older women are not necessarily, they're not valued for their wisdom. They're not necessarily valued for their inherent qualities. Sometimes they're still judged or compared to younger women, and I find that problematic. But more importantly, if they are compared, and if women do feel the pressure to have to try to stay and act young, then who's going to take on the role of maturing and being older and raising up the youth, if you will? you know, raising up the youth. I'm like, will the big mama please stand up? Will the grandmas, those women, the elders, like, will they please stand up? Because as you can see, the community is definitely in need of it. This is partially why I think Kevin Samuels was so popular. Now, love him or hate him, didn't agree with everything that he said, and there are things that people found controversial. But I think partially the reason people looked up to him is because not only did he present well, but he was an older gentleman, and to a certain extent, some people could look at him as like an elder, as like a father figure, or getting into that realm. And I think that appeal of, here's somebody who's kind of had life experiences, he's kind of test driven certain things, he's been able to determine what's good or bad. Here's somebody I can listen to. And I partially think that was his appeal. If he was in his 20s or 30s doing the same thing, I don't know if it would have been as successful. I don't know. I could be wrong, but just my personal theory is that his age combined with all of his success, all of that, I think, are what really made him who he was. And in some ways, he did act as somewhat of an elder in the Black community, whether you liked him or not, whether you agreed with him or not, whether you thought he was doing something good or not. Nevertheless, I think he gained that critical acclaim because there is that need. So, I said, good to see you back. Black women have been mad at me online lately. I said I wouldn't go. Oh, really? Okay, I would definitely like to get the story. You wouldn't date a woman who had a house. I would definitely like to get that story. That sounds really interesting. That sounds really interesting. Um, Let me see. Women are supposed to be the teachers and pass on the culture and society. Yeah, I see that. Historically, women are. Yeah, historically they're supposed to, and they are. Just women kind of naturally operate as that, as women, as like the first teachers in the home. Really, women kind of naturally act like that. The Bible is merely a book to control people. It depends how you look at it. I do understand how people can look at the Bible and see it certainly has been used as a mechanism for control. For absolutely has been. Like I don't disagree with that. Um, And I think, okay, older women want to live their lives and should not be responsible for random chicks. And this is where this is. First of all, I actually want to highlight this comment. I find this intriguing. Older women want to live their lives; they should not be responsible for random chicks. Granted, and this might be the same position that men take when they say, okay, well then we should be responsible for protection. And this is precisely why we're having this conversation, because if everyone kind of takes that, look, it's not my responsibility to handle you. It's not my responsibility to handle them. It's not my responsibility at all to have to raise up the next generation. I'm just going to go on social media and just say a whole bunch of different BS, or I'm just going to promote content that's about me or about whatever. Then we'll continue to have the results that we have in the Black community. We'll continue to have the results that we have. If men say we're not protecting women, we're not going to do it. If women say, look, we're not responsible for the next generation, then okay, then no one's protected and no one's taught. And then at that point, we can't actually complain about what happens. So, I think I partially think that's the issue. What's going on? Okay, is it Luke Hasley 20? I really hope I didn't butcher that. If I butchered your name, I'm sorry. Okay, it says, it seems to me that 50+ single women are the least apt to provide wisdom to the younger generation. I am a married 56-year-old woman, and I would never disrespect my husband with posts like those. Yeah, and I partially theory, I could be wrong here, but I wonder if some of the issue is that the amount of older single, I think just older single people in general, men and women, from my understanding or estimation, is so much higher than it was even a couple of decades ago. Like, it used to be that people generally got married in their like early, late teens, early 20s. And so we weren't having conversations about the wall. We weren't having conversations about, just issues with pregnancy, or, I still got it, or GILF or MILF, or like, we weren't really having those kinds of conversations because people were they were getting married young, and they were in some ways marrying young. And so it's like, there wasn't necessarily that level of competition, if that makes sense. Like, that didn't exist. But I think now, because people are marrying so much later, and some people aren't necessarily marrying at all, when they are getting in the aging market, in the dating market, it's like, now it's so much more broad. It's so much more broad. And if you have women who are like, okay, they're 38, they're 40, and they're like, okay, I'm now actively ready to date and marry, where 20 years ago there was like, oh, I'm ready to date and marry at 20. Now we do have to talk about the wall. I do have to talk about the wall. But it's like, back in the day when people got married young, they weren't talking about the wall because people were just marrying super young. So these issues weren't coming up. So I don't know. I mean, I partially think some of the reason we see the whether it's the thirst trapping, or the mom still got it, or the grandma still got it, and all that, is because there's just, quite frankly, a lot more single people and single women in the dating market than was even a couple of decades ago. And so now it's like, we're kind of trying, it's somewhat of an experiment of like, okay, well, what happens now when people don't get married? What happens now when you kind of put younger and older generations within the same dating market to compete? What happens? And it wasn't like that before. So I think you make a really good point. And I think some of the behavior that we see is simply fueled by singleness, women just being back on the dating market and trying to do what seems to be, I guess, the thing to do. Let me see. Yeah, I totally agree. Some of these women decided to divorce in their mid 30s, 40s, and they were not able to find a man. Yeah, I actually know one of my good friends, married when she married when she was 20, divorced her husband in her mid 30s, thinking that she found the love of her life, and make a long story short, left her husband for this fling, and the fling didn't end up marrying her, and now she's basically single in her 40s. And we talked a few months ago, and she's just like, this is super hard. She's like, I just should have stayed married. Like, I didn't know it was going to be so hard out in the dating market. Like, I thought I could do better. And mind you, this is a woman who she got married when she was young in her 20s, and in her teens, she was a really attractive girl. She had a really nice build. So she was just so used to men fawning all over her. Now she's in her 40s, and yeah, she's attractive, but the men that she wants in her age range, they may want girls who are a couple of years younger than her, or 10 years younger, or 15 years younger. And so it's a different place. Yeah, and I see this, men acquire the value as that. Yeah, no, you're right. Right. I mean, these are not popular ideas. And again, I don't think these ideas really had a place to be tested because men were just kind of marrying young and staying married. So they just kind of naturally grew older together. But now it's not like that anymore. And now it's different dating dynamics. And now it's like, what do we do? What do we do? So yeah. So like I said, I love and I honor and I am grateful for especially older wise women who I think see what they have to offer to society or just even offer in their community and speak on that because I think it's super 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 important. I wish the older generation did have a voice, especially when it came to things like this, like relationships and marriage. Like, I think they should be owning the conversation more than like young, single, been dating for 2 months people who, like, I think they should be the ones really having more of the influence. People like who've been married for decades and have a couple of kids, like, they should be the one leading the conversation because they actually have proven results, not somebody that has 500,000 followers on Instagram and is cute, but it's only dated for like 2 months. Like that's just me. Like if Sade ruled the world, that's what Sade would do. So yeah, guys. So anyways, I'm just like going on a rant. I've been going on a rant. I've been chilling. Also, I did see a cash up come through from from Dark Power. So shout out to Dark Power with the 5. I appreciate you for the super chat for the cash app. It's been real. This has been good. You guys stay tuned for another upcoming content. I have a live tomorrow, which should be fun on how to be a wife, boundaries, and marriage. So that should be really good. Luke, I think if it's Lucasly20, I'll have to hit you up because I'd love to have you on and have a conversation. I think that would be really fun if you'd be open to it. Also, Orange Pill Nurse. We should talk for sure. Maybe email me and tell me your story or something or whatever, like what's going on. That would be fun. So guys, yeah, I think I'm gonna go cook dinner. It's getting kind of late here, but I appreciate all you guys. Be sure to hit the like button. Also, like I said, support the channel, support your favorite content creators. Find me on Cash App or Venmo Sade. This is a group effort, y'all. Also, you can become a channel member if you want. And we like to have fun in the channel membership. I will usually consult my channel members if I have questions, ideas. They kind of know a lot of stuff before it drops. So become a channel member. You can do so for as little as $4.99. And stay tuned for other lives and content that I have coming up. And yeah, we will talk later. Hey guys, bye.